Welcome to this YouTube version of our Highland League Weekly results panel. This is taken from the main episode of Highland League Weekly over on the Press and Journal website, where there's also highlights of two of Saturday's Breedon Highland League games, as well as a feature this week on new Lossiemouth manager Steve Porter and his hopes with the Coasters. But here today we'll be discussing all 5 Breedon Highland League games from Saturday, as well as the 5 games in the Scottish Cup third round involving Highland League sides. We'll be starting with our main game, which was Forest Mechanics against Turriff United. Ended 6-1 to Turriff. This one, it's kind of hard without the highlights to quite sum up exactly what happened in this game. But both managers sent off, as well as one of the Turriff coaches as well, the goalkeeping coach. He went as well. Plenty of controversy. Not really sure where to start with the football or the disciplinary stuff. But the disciplinary stuff, I think for me it was all a little bit storm in a teacup. I didn't see too much wrong with what happened, but ultimately, 3 people get sent off.
See, what I find quite bizarre about it all is all the incidents I thought were all sort of something and nothing really like, okay, it's like coaching staff maybe getting in the way of retrieving the ball or whatever, but like, it was all a bit niggly for no reason. Unfortunately, David Scarth, the Turriff goalkeeping coach, gets sent off. Unfortunately, we don't see what actually sort of happened with his incident because of the barrier, but certainly Harry Bruce, the referee, was in no doubt, was he, and sent him off. And certainly if you heard Kyle McLeod as well shouting, he was in no doubt either about it by the looks of things. I do think
he knows what a red card is.
He's had a few this season. I do think Mark McLaughlin, the Forest captain, is maybe slightly fortunate to get away with a yellow, because he does raise his hands towards Rhys McEwen, and by the letter of the law now, you've seen players see red for that. Other than that, I mean, Rhys McEwen's booking was just dissent, I assume, because he didn't really do anything, and you said Warren's head had gone. I think that was probably putting it lightly. And then with the one in the second half with Stephen McDonald, I can sort of understand. I think his score was 3-1 at the time, and he was sort of wanting to get the ball back and get on with it. But the way the sort of game had gone and with the sort of niggliness in it, I think once that incident played out and Callan Gray went down, there was only really going to be one outcome. What I do, I assume it's probably different because it's a member of the coaching staff, but what I do think's interesting is that's the sort of thing, say somebody's leading 2-0 and then a team scores to make it 2-1. You see that happen all the time in the net with goalkeepers heading onto the bar and players wrestling to get it back. Nobody ever gets sent off for that, but is it different because it's a manager coming onto the pitch? I don't know, but that was the one wee caveat I would have had with that Stephen McDonald's one.
But you're not supposed to touch the ball now, are you? You see, I mean, we've got footage of coaching staff backheeling balls into the dugout as the guy's bending down to pick it up to take a throw in. We've got guys going chest to chest. We've got arms all over the place, heads flying back. For me, I think McLaughlin should have gone. And I can understand why Warren Cummins is really unhappy that he only gets a yellow. But from there, I think it's compounded by McKeown getting a yellow, and that's what really gets Warren Cummins goat, if you like. And that's where the red mess comes, and he just talks himself into going upstairs as well to watch the rest of the game.
I do agree in that, like, watching the whole thing though, there's no individual thing that happens in any of them where I'm like, whoa, that's beyond the pale. It is all a bit.
Because often when something like that happens, it's often like a bad challenge or something, maybe like right in front of the dugouts that would spark off something like that. But I think, speaking to a couple of folk yesterday, I do think it's all sort of after the final whistle went, everyone I think maybe sort of had a bit of a smirk about it and went, well, that was all very entertaining. I don't think there's any sort of lingering seriousness to it, and we better speak about the actual game rather than
I was going to say, it didn't really affect things that much, because the great thing about the Highland League is if a manager gets sent off, as we saw from Warren Cummins, you're only about 1 metre further back. Yes, the game, Forest kind of went to bits a little bit, didn't they?
Well, I suppose it did. It's like they got such a good start with getting such an early goal, and with the way Forest has been playing this season, you sort of think they push on for that. I mean, Warren Cummins sort of touched on it after the game, and he's probably right that Turriff equalising so quickly probably settled them down. And I thought it was actually a good game, and both teams, looked to have a go and created quite a few chances. But I think certainly in terms of defending their box, there was a big difference between the sides, because like I think the second goal, Forest have opportunities to clear it, and you know, with some of the other goals, it's like balls into the box, and it was too easy for Turriff either to maybe get free down the wings and pick somebody out, or they were putting balls into the box, and it was too, like say the last one with Timmy Fatona, it was too easy for him to just sort of swivel and score. And I think, you know, it's just from a Forest perspective, just a bit of an off day really, in terms of like they just didn't deal with or didn't answer the questions Turriff asked of them defensively. And I think you just sort of have to write it off and move on, because they have had a good season. For Turriff, on the flip side, it's amazing the difference a couple of weeks makes. That's a 4-0 win, a 6-1 win, and they're sort of players coming back, and they're sort of on an upward trajectory again. And I thought particularly Colin Gray, who's sort of recently back for injury, and then Mackenzie Taylor, who's a new signing, I thought both of them were excellent.
I think actually all the touchline antics helped Turriff. There's almost like a sense of injustice or unfairness at what's happened with their manager and their goalkeeper coach sitting in the stand, and they go on to really take the game by the scruff of the neck. And then after that, when Stephen McDonald goes in the stand, I think that's the free kick straight away. He's just gone up in the stand and the free kick goes in to really put the game kind of beyond Forest. And from that point, I think heads just go in the Forest team, because the goals quickly follow soon after that, and that's game over really.
Like you're saying, 30, I think the Turriff's fourth goal probably was the key one, because that, when it's sort of balanced at 3-1, there still is that sort of glimmer for Forest if they get the next goal. But a great free kick for Kieran Yates, and then it was kind of killed off after that.
Okay then, well let's move on to game 2 from the weekend. We were also at Kynoch Park for Keith against Clachnacuddin. Another win for Keith there then, and another young Don making an impact in the Breedon Highland League.
Aye, took his goal well, but I did think the sort of standout, well, that was a standout moment of the game, but Nathan McEwen's pass to release Jordan Lynch on the right side was the sort of touch of class. I thought it was an excellent pass which opened up the move, and 4 league wins in the bounce for Keith, 21 points from their sort of first round of games, 17 games, and they got 33 last season, so they're probably, if they can sort of replicate the form they've shown in the second half of the season, they've got a decent chance of getting a significantly better points total. And I think the goal they scored was the sort of one moment of quality in the game. Really, I mean, Clach had a second half especially, had a lot of territory, a lot of possession. They put a lot of balls into the box, but
They huffed and puffed.
Aye, the majority, other than one save, I felt the majority of the saves that Craig Reid was being asked to make were pretty routine, where I would give credit to Keith as well, as they defended their box well and managed to sort of block a lot of shots and things before they got as far as Craig Reid. So I think overall, kind of, if you can score a well-worked goal and then defend your box like that, you probably deserve to win, and can you get your rewards? And Keith have had that. I would say, and having watched it a few times, Clach are a bit unlucky at 0-0 that they don't have a penalty, because for me, the Troy Cooper incident, he's got a touch on the ball first, and Grant Maroney, no intention to catch a man, but he's come in to swing to play the ball, hasn't got there in time, and he's connected with Troy Cooper, and it's one of them. I'm not sure whether the officials were unsighted or what it was, but it's one of them where if it happens in the centre circle, they would give a free kick every day of the week, so I don't understand why it wasn't given as a penalty. And that's something at that stage of the game as well that I'm sure Clach will be ruining a wee bit. But what I did find interesting with that as well is very muted appeals for the Clach players. I thought they were doing a lot more vociferous appeals.
Paul Third.
Yes.
Keith have played 17 Breedon Highland League games this season. What haven't they done?
What haven't they done?
Drawn a game.
Oh.
7 wins, 10 losses to this point in the season. Only team without a draw.
You've probably just jinxed them for this weekend now. You know that, don't you?
Possibly. But they're going well, aren't they?
Yeah, very good. It's funny that their whole season has been a story of guys who are not available. Whenever you speak to the manager, he goes, "Oh, I've got 5 or 6 every week," and it's been like that all season. So for them to be doing this, given that, because they don't have the biggest squad, they're not. Let's be honest, they're not one of the top 5 or 6 who would have that depth. And I think 4 wins and a spin in that circumstances for a club like Keith is very good going.
What you're saying about players missing as well is, but where you would give Craig Ewan a lot of credit is players he's managed to bring in, kind of likes of Cammy Wilson, the likes of Brodie Alberts, guys that he's managed to get in on loan to sort of give them a few extra options and potentially be, especially in the final third, potentially be those difference makers.
Shall we move on then? We've got plenty to get through across the competitions. Right, we'll start with Wick Academy 1, Huntly 2, a 5th successive league win for Huntly, who are now 6th in the Breedon Highland League. Angus Grant netting twice for them. 2nd, another free kick. We've talked about his free kicks before. 23 goals now in all comps.
I had 23. It's incredible.
Should say Gordon McNabb got Wick's goal in that one towards the end to make it a nervy finish. But Huntly, another team going superbly well.
Oh, it's remarkable. I mean, we've touched on it, given that Huntly had lost key goal threats in their side with players moving on, and you thought, well, who's going to step up? And 23 goals by what? The end of November, as it was. That's incredible shooting. You wonder what his final tally is going to be.
Well, if he stays fit, then you would have, the way Angus is going, you'd have to be looking at 40 plus at the moment, you would say. But I'm sure he'll hit that target, although he'll say, as they all do, that he's just taking it a game at a time. But I think, like, that result again on Saturday probably sums up where the two clubs are a wee bit at the moment. Like for Huntly, regular goal threat, and they just seem to have this way of, like, even in sort of pretty tight games like that, they'll get themselves in front and be able to build that cushion, whereas Wick, I think on the whole, by all accounts, played pretty well over the 90 minutes, but couldn't score until it was sort of too late, and they're also sort of struggling to keep clean sheets lately as well, the Scories, which obviously makes it that bit harder if you're trying to pick up a 3 points.
Yeah, not happening for them just now. Strathspey Thistle 0, Deveronvale 3. Goals in this one from Ben Hermiston, Oleg Dlugoz, and Ben Hermiston again. Callum, do you want to do the stat in this one about Deveronvale?
Aye, well, given it was me that dug it up, I will. But it's the first time they've won 4 games in a row since October 2019, so that's be very pleasing for everyone at Princess Royal Park. And they're also now, having played 18 league games, I think they're past last season's points tally already, got 25 for all of last season, and they're on to 27 already, so things are looking good for them. In a big week coming up, there's a few teams have got Aberdeenshire Shield quarter-finals in midweek, and then Highland League Cup quarter-finals on Saturday, and Deveronvale are one of them, away to Turriff on Tuesday in the Shield, and then away to Huntly in the League Cup at the weekend. And you know, the way they're playing and the confidence they've got, I'm sure they'll fancy their chances of trying to get into a semi-final or even 2 semi-finals, which would, if they could do that, would be another great step forward for them.
We're saying that Strathspey, they were down to 10 men at 1-0 towards the end of the first half. Paul Brindle sent off for 2 quick-fire bookings that Ryan Essen felt, you know, once he'd been booked once, he maybe shouldn't have gone into the second challenge.
Well,
proof's in the pudding, I suppose.
Who am I to argue with Ryan Essen's sentiments there? Yeah, I mean, clearly that's an incident that swings the game firmly in Deveronvale's favour. That they're a goal up and then a man up. So.
The thing is, as well, it's I think the expression that was used, it's the old cliche again, but with the second one, he gave the referee a decision to make, because I think Paul was trying to plead that he'd pulled out of the challenge. But Strathspey probably missed the boat a wee bit. They started the better team, had 2 or 3 really good chances they didn't take, and then once Deveronvale scored, it seemed like the Bamford sort of took a bit of a grip of proceedings. And really for Strathspey, the last couple of weeks, that game on Saturday and the loss at Turriff, it's not just losing, but momentum stalled, but it's not just losing, but it's the sort of manner in which they've lost, where they've created good opportunities in both games, not taken them, and then they've sort of returned to leaking goals at the other end.
That's why losing Brindle for this weekend will be a sore one for them.
Okay, one more Breedon Highland League game to discuss from Saturday, and that was for Martin United 1, Rothes 0. For Martin capitalising on Banks of D and Inverurie Locos above them being out of action in the league. At the weekend, similarly dominated, just one Aidan Coombe goal to show for it. But like on the other side of things, if it's Rothes, the way things have been going for them, they have competed well in the game.
Aye, well I think stark contrast from 3 weeks ago the sides met in the R. Davidson Bankery Highland League Cup at McKessick Park rather than North Lodge, and for Martin won 8-1. So certainly for the Spaysiders, although it sounded like they were probably on the back foot for the majority of the contest, Ronnie Sharp will take a lot of sort of pleasure maybe out of the way they competed and the way they stayed in the game, and for the matches they've got to come, those are good points that they can take forward. For Martin, I mean, the win was ultimately the most important thing, but I can see why Stuart Anderson may be disappointed at the performance, or disappointed that they didn't get the second goal to make things a bit more comfortable. But ultimately they've done their job, and again, like I was saying about Deveronvale, for Martin, home to Inverurie in the quarter-final of the Shield on Tuesday, away to Brora for the third time this season on Saturday in the League Cup. So, you know, good for them to start what looks an exciting week potentially with a win. 3
teams with 32 points, and I think it's 32, isn't it? Banks of D, Locos. And for Martin, who's your favourite?
Oh, I think Banks of D, but not with a great degree of confidence. There's not much between those 3 teams at all.
Okay then, before we move on to the Scottish Cup games that took place on Saturday as well, let's have a quick look at the Breedon Highland League standings as they are now. Right, as previously mentioned, 5 Scottish Cup ties involving Highland League teams on Saturday, all in the third round. All of our teams hoping to get through to the promised land of the 4th round, where they could potentially meet a big Premiership side. But let's find out who actually got through. Where do you want to start, Callum? I think this is maybe making it slightly awkward.
Only one place
yeah.
to start.
Fraserburgh 2, Annan Athletic 0.
Result of the weekend, certainly for our teams in the Cup, unquestionably. Annan perhaps finding, as the likes of, if you go back over the years, Stranraer, Montrose, Clyde, Dundee have found in the past that Bellslea can be a bit of a graveyard for Scottish League clubs. I think
it's just too narrow. It's just
Fraserburgh this season, the consistency maybe hasn't quite been there as we've been used to seeing in the past, but we've seen on Saturday and previously that on their day they're still capable of giving any team problems. Mark Cowie said he thought they were immense after the game, and having watched pretty comprehensive highlights, more comprehensive than were on the Scottish Cup YouTube channel, I couldn't agree more with them. I thought they were excellent, carried a threat throughout. Probably, if you were being critical, should have had maybe another couple or at least one more goal. And then in the last sort of 15 minutes, when the onslaught came for Annan, Brian Hay and Kieran Simpson in particular dealt with all the questions asked, and other than sort of one effort that sort of took a deflection off of Brian Hay and hit the post, Annan never really looked like scoring. And, you know, for the Broch back through to the 4th round for the first time since 2018, and they'll be awaiting the draw with interest.
Yeah. So, 2 goals before half-time, 2 Scott Barber assists for those for Connor Wood and Keenan Simpson.
Fantastic.
But
on his 400th appearance as well, and I mean, some of you might have read the piece, but Scott sort of, his granda, who's quite a big figure in his life, he passed away a couple of weeks ago, so Ken Scott was sort of determined to try, and he was liked going down to the Bellslea and watching, so Ken Scott was pretty determined to try and get through for him.
Okay, let's move on. Cowden Beath 1, Brechin City 4 after extra time this result, but Brad Mackay scoring a hat-trick for the Hedgemen as they got themselves through into the 4th round draw. I mean, it's a great result for Brecon, isn't it?
It was. I mean, I thought if you look at the league positions, like Cowdenbeath down towards the bottom of the Lowland League, certainly fancied Brecon before the game, and once it went 1-1 and that, it's maybe looking like a bit of a banana skin, but every credit, they came through well in extra time. I mean, Brad Mackay's had a great career, full-time football and lots of different things, but I'm sure that over his whole career that'll still be a pretty special moment on Saturday to score a hat-trick in the Scottish Cup and help Brecon get through. And again, now sort of the fun part, I suppose, everyone, before the draw's been made, as we're sitting here now, everyone can dream about whether it's Rangers, Celtic, Aberdeen, Hearts, Hibs, whoever. There's a lot of good ties in there potentially.
They'll get each other.
I was going to say, is the draw seeded?
Get one through.
Can they draw each other?
Yeah, they can draw each other, aye. It's happened before because, again, when speaking to Scott Barber last week, Fraserburgh played Rangers in 2018, the last time they got this far. He was at Fermartin at the time and he was watching the draw and he said Fraserburgh drew Rangers and Fermartin drew Cove Rangers and they were the same league at the time, so that could happen. It'd be a bit of a blow, but it would let one get through.
Well, yes, I was what to say. Okay, we'll go on now to a near miss, I think we could call it. Banks of D1, Hamilton Accies 2. You were at this game, Callum. D2 down to an Ollie Shaw brace at the break, but it sounded like they got their goal back through Michael Phillips in the second period, and it sounded like they were pushing for that leveller. Second
half was all Banks of D, and I think as I'm reflecting on it now, as a minimum with the chances they had, they should have forced extra time. I think they can take great pride in their performance, but I do think they maybe look at it as a slight missed opportunity in 2 counts. I think both the goals were, as much as Ollie Shaw took them well, they were both a bit preventable in terms of, for the first one, Nathan Cooney, and then for Mark Reynolds for the second one, both sort of just misjudged the flight of the ball a wee bit, which gave Ollie Shaw a chance. But second half, Banks of D really took the game to Hamilton, and on another day they would have at least forced extra time. Ian Viger's free kick tipped onto the post, and then you had Marks Alexander, Kane Winton, Ali Stark, Chris Ancinazzi. There was a lot of good chances that Banks of D created, but they just couldn't finish it off, and it was a shame for them because they put a lot into the game and didn't get anything out of it.
Okay, moving on to one now where the levels maybe told a little bit. Livingston 2, Brora Rangers 0. Livy 2-0 up. Sounded like Tony Dingwall and Craig McKenzie did have efforts saved for Brora after the break, but I mean, that's sometimes what you come up against in the Cup, isn't it?
I think Brora, again, performed with a lot of credit, kind of playing a team second in the Championship, team that until the end of last season had been in the Premiership for a long time. And I think Brora competed well, held their own, created a couple of decent openings in the second half, and it's that thing, as much as at 2-0, it's a wee bit of a mountain to climb. If they could have scored, you never know, they would have had that chance. But Livingston, I think, by the same token, did their job professionally and took their chances in the first half, and that's what can happen. I mean, as good a side as Brora are, it's still that jump in levels and full-time against part-time, things like that, and you always feel, and it's a bit like even with Banks of D and how they played against Hamilton, it's very cliche, but I always feel those sort of ties for a Highland League team, you've got that bit more advantage if you can get them at home. Just makes it that bit more difficult. But Brora, I mean, getting through to the third round, it's again a decent run, and they got a decent tie, and they played well enough just not to be.
Yes. Clydebank 2, Buckie Thistle 0 is the final tie to discuss. Now, Callum, I'm relying on you for this one. Buckie ended the game with 9 men. Hamish Munro sent off on 37 minutes, straight red for a tackle on Liam McGonigal. Nicky Little then put Clydebank in front and then scored a penalty, and in the penalty being awarded, Dale Wood was sent off for that. Was that a second yellow?
No, it was a straight red. Buckie were, I think, the game is totally skewed by the performance of the referee, Alex Shepherd, to be honest, because
Awful.
I'll say this, and maybe it's going over the top.
No,
I'll say
much Shepherd.
I'll say this, and it's maybe going over the top, but with a couple of those decisions, Buckie were basically playing against 12 men, in the sense that Hamish Munro's red card, the contact is minimal at best, and I don't think he actually catches a player with his studs at all. It's just sort of like his toe, and the player was actually on the way down before there was any contact and bounced straight back up again to have a go to protest to the referee. So I think at most a booking would have sufficed. I mean, Lewis McKinnon said afterwards if that was a red card for a serious foul play, then you would be getting 5 or 6 red cards in most games, and I would be inclined to agree with him. And then the penalty decision is even worse. If there's a foul, ball goes through, Mark Ridgers comes out and gathers it, Dale Wood's sort of shepherding it back to him, as defenders do all the time. That continues your shepherd's crook line. As defenders do all the time, the Clydebank player sort of puts his arm over Dale Wood's shoulder and sort of pulls him to ground, then falls himself, and they get a penalty. If there was a foul in it, it should have been a Buckie free kick. And it's like, in a big game like that, and trying to get through to the 4th round, you need certain things to go your way, and the Jags were out of luck, I would suggest, on Saturday. And I can some people maybe say, oh well, you've got to be better, or don't give the referee the opportunities to give that. But with both of those calls, I thought there wasn't really a lot Buckie could do. They were just, I think the referees had a poor game, and I'm told he was being assessed on Saturday, so I would hope the Observer would maybe have a few pointers for him after that. But taking that, in fairness, Clydebank are a very good team as well. Like, they were the one up at Keith in the 2nd round, and they're top of the West of Scotland League, so they are a good outfit. And I'm not saying, but for those decisions Buckie would have got through, because you don't know, but it was certainly a hindrance for the Highland League side the way that game was refereed.
Philosophical question to end the Scottish Cup segment. Was it a good day for the Highland League overall? I know we like to do this after rounds of Scottish Cup games.
I think so. Getting two through. We had 2 through in Buckie and Brora last year, and in sort of more recent times, like a couple of seasons before that, I don't think there was any in the 4th round. So I think it's all because of I think it's getting harder and harder in the Cup now, in terms of when it first went open 2007-8, there were a lot less clubs eligible to play in it, whereas provided you had the sort of licence, the Highland League clubs have always come in. So at that time, and up until sort of the last sort of 6 or 7 years, there was maybe that chance for more to progress further. But I think now you're finding there's a lot of clubs down in the Central Belt, well resourced, improving their facilities and things now coming into it, and it makes it harder. So I think any time you can get one or a couple into the 4th round, that's always got to be viewed as success overall.
I mean, when you see the likes of Carly Thistle and Peterhead, 2 clubs from our patch, not getting there, it shows you just how tough it is, and they're established SPFL teams.
And the thing is, you need that bit of luck. You need either a bit of luck with a draw to help you, or you need to do what Fraserburgh did and probably take an SPFL scalp somewhere along the way to get there, because it is that competitive.
Okay then, well that's all of the games. The men, what was that, 10 games?
10 games.
Overall to discuss? It's not even that many. It's just one more than usual, isn't it? That's all the games from Saturday covered. Let's move on to this week's feature. Recently we spoke to new Lossiemouth manager Steve Porter about his hopes for his tenure at Grant Park. That's it then for our YouTube version of the Highland League Weekly results panel. Just a reminder, if you want to watch the full version of Highland League Weekly this week and every other week, which includes highlights from Breedon Highland League matches and associated competitions, as well as regular features, you can do that over on the Press and Journal website. You have to be a subscriber to do that. You can become a subscriber to the Press and Journal website via our Sport Pack in the moment for just £1 for your first 3 months, which is quite a good deal. But if you'd prefer to just watch the discussion, us 3 talking about all of the games, that took place after every respective weekend of action. You can continue to do that. The next one will be live on YouTube next week after this weekend's league matches, and we'll see you then.